Good morning. We're here today with Chief Judge PETRESE Tucker of the District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania.
Yes,
I
that's
got
quite a
that
mouthful.
right.
You should see our email.
Yes, I'll bet.
It's even worse.
Well, Judge, I want to thank you for letting us film with you today and talking with us, and getting to know you a little better.
It's my pleasure.
I appreciate it. So why don't we start out at the beginning? Let's talk about your background, shall we?
Well, I was born in a little place in South Philadelphia.
Were you?
I stayed in South Philly until I was maybe 3 or 4.
Uh-huh.
And I've lived in the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Born and reared in Mount Airy.
Uh-huh.
Went to the Philadelphia parochial schools.
Oh, okay.
And then Temple. Temple undergrad and
Yeah.
Temple Law School.
Oh, right, okay.
Never really knew any lawyers, but that was my chosen profession.
Well, that's great. I know. I like Mount Airy myself. I think it's a pleasant place to be and to live.
Yeah, it's one of the more diverse neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering now, was there anything that kind of inspired you or made you want to become a lawyer?
Well, when I was younger, it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the civil rights movement was very active at that
right.
time.
I remember.
And I think that was what attracted me to
Okay.
becoming a lawyer.
Uh-huh. And what was the practice of law like then when you began?
Well, there weren't as many women.
Right. I
For
guess
sure.
not. Yeah.
My graduating class was maybe 1/3 women
Uh-huh.
at Temple,
All right.
so that there were fewer women in the district attorney's office, the solicitor's office. Women were just token women at the time
Okay.
in the law firms and,
Yeah.
and the like.
More or less, somebody had to have a woman.
Right.
Well, although I'm sure they were just as, well, if not brighter,
Mhm.
than their male counterparts.
Well, somebody like I'm trying to think. Some of the older judges, female judges, like
Mhm.
Lois Forer,
Okay.
they unfortunately had to be in private practice in order to practice
I
law.
see.
They had to be in private practice.
Right. They had to establish their own
Yeah.
solo practice. Wow. It's really something that, in today's conversations where we're talking about race relations and other things like that, a lot of people don't think of how the other person is living and has lived. And at the same time, I didn't know that there was that difficulty for women to break into the legal profession back then. And what inspired you to become, or why did you decide to become a judge then after you were?
Well, my first job out of law school was
Yeah.
as a law clerk.
Okay. Oh,
And I was a law clerk for Lawrence Prattis, who was a common pleas court judge.
I remember.
And working with him inspired me to want to be a judge.
How about that? And so is he, or were there might have been other people involved in the law who you looked up to, like were any giants of the law, so to speak?
Well,
or-
Judge Prattis,
right.
and he had a very interesting group of colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them really played a part
No kidding.
in me wanting to be a judge.
So these are people that you actually knew and worked with, and
Yes.
you could.
Yes, because prior to that point, I didn't know any judges. I didn't know any lawyers.
Right.
So this was all new to me.
Okay. And I think you were probably elected around 1986 or something. I think.
86, 87.
Okay.
Yeah, 87.
And that's when we first met, probably at family court.
Mhm.
I was appointing counsel at that point, I think. Well, and then you moved over to federal court,
Mm-hmm.
and I was pleased to see that you were nominated by Judge Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And then not too long after that, you became chief judge.
Right.
And that's an impressive uh, legacy and move right there. I mean,
Well, I've been here, and it's hard to believe, 16 years.
wait, yeah, I completely forgot about
Right.
that whole angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you like it here at
Oh,
Federal?
definitely.
Yeah.
It's a great job. Being chief is very interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Responsibilities, yeah.
But it is a great job. My colleagues are great.
You mentioned the difference between, when we were speaking earlier, between state court and federal court, where you are now, and you've sat in both courts. What do you find is the difference, or some of the differences?
Well, in federal court, we have our own calendar. We have our own cases. Our cases are assigned to us from the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
We have a mixture of cases,
Uh-huh.
criminal cases and civil cases.
Oh,
In state court, there's a division. There's family court, civil, criminal,
mm-hmm.
complex, commercial. All of that comes in federal court. All of that comes to one
One
judge.
judge. Yeah,
Yeah.
so a judge in the state court would, for as long as he's assigned to that court or she is assigned to that court, would hear the same kinds
That's
of
right.
cases.
That's right.
So you get a lot more variety here.
Yes.
Have there been any cases that might stick out or that might be of interest to the public? Have there been any big cases or?
Well, the one case that I remember is when I first went on the state bench.
Mm-hmm.
I was emergency judge, and as emergency judge, you handle different emergencies that arise, usually hospital related
Okay.
and involving children.
Uh,
And the one that I remember is one where a young lady, her parents were Jehovah's Witness,
uh-huh.
and she needed to have an infusion,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't want her to have it. She had sickle cell,
Ah, okay.
and I had emergency hearings, expert testimony, in order that she have a transfusion.
Okay. It must have been a really difficult case.
It was very difficult because the parents, I mean, they truly believed
Yeah,
and didn't want her to have a transfusion.
right. But you think things worked out for the best.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Now you're talking about the practice of law when you began,
Mm-hmm.
and today, what are the? I mean, I know you're on the bench, but how do you see the practice of law being different than back then?
Well, I think now that I'm in federal court,
Yes.
I see that a lot of cases don't go to trial.
Uh-huh.
There's a decreasing number of jury trials. More people,
Which is good from the court
which is good
standpoint.
from the court standpoint.
Yeah.
There's a lot more mediation and arbitration. I don't know if that's good or bad for the litigants because it can become costly,
I see.
but it's more of that.
Yeah. Instead of just a slam bang decision
Right.
one way or the other.
Right.
It seems to me that it would probably be better if the results were tailored. Although I guess you do that as a judge too
Mhm.
when you make a decision. I've always thought judging must be the most difficult job in the world. I mean, you're sitting in judgment, people's lives, and making changes to them or
Yeah.
not. And I mean, do you find it to be a tough profession? Is it difficult?
Well, it's difficult. The judging, I don't think, is as difficult as sentencing in criminal
Right.
matters.
Yeah.
That is very difficult. That can be very difficult. Because you have, on the one hand, we have mandatory sentences, sentencing guidelines, and things like that.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we have people, individuals, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
And some of the stories can be quite compelling.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. is there, on your mind, are there any of those cases, aside from, although the Jehovah's Witnesses case must have been, as I said, and as you explained, very, very difficult. But when you hear the stories, people's stories, and you say that they're compelling, and how does that, do you have to take yourself and more or less stay above that, or withdraw from that, or can you?
Well, I don't think you really can. But you have to balance.
Okay.
And sometimes there is no balance because there are mandatory sentences involved.
Oh, right.
And I've sentenced people to over 100 years based on mandatories,
Okay.
the way they stack up.
I see. They stack up because from more than one case? Or
Well, for instance,
charges?
I had a case that had several robberies. They're called Hobbs Act robberies, where they were robbing bars.
I see.
And you're robbing a bar with a gun, it's a mandatory.
I see.
And it's not only a mandatory sentence, but it's the second case is a consecutive sentence. So by the time you start out with 5 years, 7 years, 25 years,
yes.
it all has to be consecutive.
Wow.
So you can end up with hundreds of years.
Instead of
in the
concurrent sentences.
Yes.
Wow. I can see how that might add up.
So people are really shocked. Defendants are really shocked when they come to federal court.
Yeah.
After they've been in state court for a while.
Yeah, right.
And they've had probation and county sentence.
Right.
And they come to federal court and they're like 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it must be some form of disincentive.
Yeah.
Of course, by that time, I guess it's too late.
Yeah. Most of the time it is too late.
You know, to do what you're doing, you have to enjoy it. I know, in some way, or maybe all of it. What gives you that good feeling about being a judge? Why do you come to work?
Well, I think I can make a difference.
Okay.
When I have jury trials, I love it because of the interaction with the citizens.
I see. Yeah.
And it's exciting to see them really like that they're involved for the most part.
Yeah.
And even people who don't want to be involved initially
Yes.
are excited once it's over.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten letters, saying what a good time they had, in spite of the fact that they didn't want to be there to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's about really, aside from a traffic ticket, that's about the only way that a lot of people are going to
That's
have
right.
any exposure to their court system. And I've heard similar things, that people don't want to come, avoid jury duty, and then come and find out that they really enjoyed it, and it even made a difference in their lives. Do you think that you have, well, you said that you think that you can make a difference, and is that what you call your legacy or something like that, that you have made a difference in some way?
Well, I would hope so. I think by hiring law clerks every year.
Yeah.
I have 3 law clerks. I have 1 for 1 year and 2 for 2 years.
Okay.
I have influenced them, and that's a really good feeling.
Okay.
Even though it's 3 at a time.
Yeah, right.
I've made a difference
Good.
in their lives.
And do you think that's a good way for young attorneys to start out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think once you get out of law school, you don't really know what you want to do.
Yeah.
Most people have no idea what they want to do, what kind of law they want to practice.
Like anybody else.
Like anybody else.
Yeah.
And a law clerk is an opportunity for you to observe and learn what other options you might have.
I could see that. It's sort of like still going to school.
Absolutely.
And still yet honing your ability.
And it often tells you what you don't want to do. as opposed to what you do want to do.
Just
what
as
you
important.
Do. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can eliminate certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
And how would you advise new judges who are just coming onto the scene? Do you have any, recommendations
Well,
for them?
I
Any
think
advice?
the most important thing you have to recognize is that you're no longer an advocate for one side or the other.
Right.
You're an advocate for fairness. And as corny as it might sound, you have to learn how to do things going up the middle,
Yeah.
not toward one side or the other. You're no longer an assistant DA. You're no longer an assistant defender.
Right.
You're a judge, and that makes a difference.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
As I said, I think it must be a difficult profession. So what do you think, what would you call your proudest moment in your judicial career?
I think my proudest moment happened just recently. I had my portrait done
Uh-huh.
and my portrait unveiled.
Oh, that's great.
And it's hung in the ceremonial courtroom with the other
Chief
judges.
Wow. That must have been a proud
That was very
moment.
exciting.
Yeah. You could relive it by going back to the courtroom.
Yeah. And it's there, just the thought
Yeah.
that it's there forever
Yeah.
is really awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't know about it. I haven't
Yeah.
been around for a little while. But that's great. And do you think is there anything else that you might want to talk with us about today? Or
Well, no, I just think this is a very good idea
yeah,
to have the history
thanks.
because we don't know what was coming before, what came before us.
Right.
So it's just a good idea to preserve history.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we don't know what may have passed either.
That's right.
So your information about beginning in the practice of law back in the 60s or so was really very interesting to me and enlightening to me.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your coming and speaking with us today, and I appreciate all your wisdom, as a matter of fact, and insight.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.